The cafeteria is now quiet, only the sound of footsteps that keep running back and forth. None other than Arson and Dylan. The students lay down in a straight and neat line. No one dared to make a sound, until suddenly heard the door open. Mew had just arrived at the cafeteria by forcibly pulling Gulf to follow him. "Sleep over there," Mew ordered while pushing Gulf's body to lie down near Earth. Gulf followed Mew's order. He lay down near Earth, and on top of her was Mrs. Shania. Gulf closed his eyes, but suddenly Earth nudged Gulf's shoulder, making Gulf startled and turned to Saint, who was looking at him sarcastically. "This is all your fault. This wouldn't have happened if you hadn't hidden the fugitive," she said, which could be heard by the other students. "The fugitive is Gulf's partner, right?" Then did she already know that he was a fugitive? Of course. Immediately, the female students said bad things when they heard Earth's words. Gulf could only remain silent. He did not want to deal with the people who were judging him badly. "They're dating," Earth said sarcastically. "Shut your mouth and stop talking nonsense." "So, Miss Shania, why is that nonsense? I was right all along. You should have let me call the police," Earth argued. "This isn't the time to decide who's wrong. Just think about how to get out safely. Safely, we could all die here." "Who is it?" Dylan said when he heard the whisper of a voice that began to harden. Dylan walked towards Earth while pointing his rifle. "Be quiet." Instantly, the students fell silent again. Gulf closed his eyes. He didn't want to see the gun pointed at his side. After Dylan had left, Earth turned back to Gulf and whispered very softly, "It's all your fault." Gulf turned his face away. He really felt even more guilty for his behavior. Gulf began to regret having helped hide Mew inside the dormitory. Mew was now heading to the basement, where he hid the dormitory guards. There was also God and Mr. Kim tied up with ropes. "Are you really a fugitive? Tell me," Mr. Kim asked. God rounded his eyes. "Fugitive? Him what? Where are you hiding, Gulf?" Mew turned his head towards God when he heard Gulf's name from God's mouth. "Once you dare to make a sound, I will kill you first," he said, which made the dormitory guards fall silent, not daring to speak. "So, Gulf was tricked by you?" continued Mr. Kim. Mew looked back at Mr. Kim. Soon he ignored Mr. Kim's words and went back out of the basement. Gulf, who felt that he couldn't stay silent when he kept hearing the sound of blood dripping from behind a small wood, saw a man, Warren, pay permission. Gulf raised his hand. "What?" Arson answered. "He's bleeding. Can I stop the bleeding?" Arson looked at Dylan as if he was asking if he could allow Gulf. Dylan rolled his eyes. "Are you crazy?" Arson had no choice. He could only ignore Gulf because Mew had told him to obey Dylan's orders before acting. Not getting permission from Dylan, Gulf stood up. Dylan, who saw that, he immediately walked towards Gulf, then pointed his gun. "Lie down." The scene unfolds in a tense atmosphere, with Dylan holding a gun and threatening Gulf, who is sitting injured and refusing to follow his orders. Just as Dylan is about to strike Gulf with the gun, Mew enters the cafeteria, stopping Dylan's violent act. "Dylan," Mew calls out, his voice firm and commanding. The students in the cafeteria erupt in a chorus of screams. Relieved that Gulf has been spared, Mew approaches Dylan, his expression stern. "What are you doing? I told you not to act on your own," Mew says, his voice laced with disapproval. "He wouldn't listen to me," Dylan replies, his anger evident. "He's hurt," Gulf says, his head still lowered. "Can't you see he's bleeding? We need to give him first aid." Mew turns to Gulf. then walks towards Boren to assess his injuries. Gulf rises to his feet. "I'll get the first aid kit," he says. "Are you crazy? Sit down," Dylan shouts, his voice filled with frustration. "Wait," Mew interjects. "You're also hurt?" He gently takes Dylan's wounded arm and looks at Gulf. "Show me the way." Gulf rolls his eyes before leaving the cafeteria with Mew following close behind. Dylan watches them leave, his gaze sharp and unforgiving. Upon reaching the dormitory's infirmary, Gulf quickly retrieves the first aid kit and other supplies. Mew leans against the door, his eyes fixed on Gulf. Mew begins, but Gulf cuts him off, leaving the infirmary without acknowledging him. Mew sighs softly and follows Gulf, his steps determined. He tries to reach for Gulf's arm and finally succeeds, but Gulf remains silent, avoiding his gaze. "Don't bother my son. Don't involve him in my mistakes," Gulf says quietly, but his words are clear enough for Mew to hear. Mew stays silent, offering no response to Gulf's statement. After speaking to Mew, Gulf returns to the cafeteria. He immediately begins tending to Boren's wounds, ignoring Mew's intense gaze. Boren smiles slyly at Mew, then turns to Gulf. "You're the one who's been hiding him, aren't you?" he asks softly. "I'm sorry," Gulf says, his head bowed, filled with remorse for his actions. Boren gently strokes Gulf's head, forcing him to look up. "Don't worry about it. It's all right." Behind the touch, Boren nudges a sharp object nearby, signaling for Gulf to retrieve it. Mew takes a step back, cautious and observant. "Helping unknowingly doesn't mean protecting a fugitive," Boren says, sliding his hand into his sleeve pocket, gesturing for Gulf to discreetly place the sharp object in his sleeve. Mew continues to watch Gulf and Boren intently. Gulf glances briefly at Mew, then resumes applying the ointment to Boren's forehead. He winces at the sight of the deep wound. "Shit," Boren feigns pain. "Goodness, does it hurt that much?" Gulf asks, secretly taking the sharp object and placing it in Boren's sleeve. He then fans Boren's wound with his hand to conceal his actions. Mew turns away, unable to bear the sight of Gulf's behavior. Once he's finished treating Boren, Gulf closes the first aid kit and walks back towards saying to lie down. Seeing Gulf leave, Mew approaches Boren and ties his hands more securely. "Close your eyes," Dylan commands the hostages. Mew stands up and retrieves his weapon. "Hey, you lousy fugitive," Boren calls out. Mew turns towards Boren. "This is how we finally meet," Boren continues. "To catch you, I went to America, Korea, Italy, and a remote forest far from my territory. In that forest, I almost died chasing you." Mew is plunged into a flashback, reliving his pursuit by Boren. He remembers his 5-year run as a fugitive, Boren relentlessly hunting him to prove to his superiors that Mew wasn't human. He recalls the incident in the remote forest, where he used his powers to lure a wolf to distract Boren, thankfully sparing Boren's life. He remembers his mother, Violet, forbidding him and the other vampires from using their powers against humans, a prohibition that had lasted nearly 7 years. Snapping back to the present, Mew kneels before Boren, their gazes locking. Boren, undeterred, meets Mew's intense stare. Mew offers a cynical smile. "You're a real son of a bitch," Boren spits. "Killing dozens isn't enough? Next, you'll kill me." Gulf, still within earshot, overhears their exchange. Boren chuckles softly. "Listen, there's a lot I want to hear from you. I also need to avenge my colleagues' deaths." but I'm worried the military might kill you before I can do all that. Mew simply smirks at Boren's words. Only Dylan remains guarding the hostages in the cafeteria. Boren manages to free his hands using the sharp object Gulf had given him. He looks towards Gulf, seeking his help in escaping. Gulf understands. Ugh, my stomach hurts. He cries out, successfully drawing Dylan's attention. Miss Anya, sitting nearby, listens to Gulf's pain cries. Winning. Didn't I say I'd kill you if you said anything? Dylan snarls, pointing his weapon at Gulf, causing the girls to scream. Miss Anya immediately steps forward protectively. Listen, he says he's in pain. How can you do this? Can't you hear me? Dylan interrupts. Stomachache? You're faking after treating that bastard? Answer me. Gulf trembles in fear. Boren seizes this opportunity, his actions unnoticed by Saint. Are you really faking? Dylan presses. Boren, now directly behind Dylan, aims the sharp object at Dylan's neck. Saint, noticing Arson entering the cafeteria, feigns a cough to alert Boren. Boren quickly reties his bonds to avoid detection. Dylan returns to watching the other hostages as Arson arrives. Ignoring Gulf's earlier cries, night falls. The students, including Gulf, are asleep on the cafeteria floor. Mew, keeping watch, constantly gazes at Gulf's sleeping form. He feels like he hasn't seen Gulf asleep in a long time. After several minutes, Mew leaves the cafeteria to orchestrate an escape from the dormitory with his friends. A plan already in motion. Door. Screams erupt from the girls as gunshots ring out at 1 in the morning. Boren stands up to calm the girls. Everyone, calm down. I think they're trying to escape through the basement door number 2. I'll chase them now. Stay there. He exits the cafeteria and heads towards the basement. Gunshots continue to ring out, and now there are explosions coming from behind the dormitory. Boren, having just checked the basement, returns to the cafeteria. Get out of here, quickly. All the girls run out of the cafeteria. During their escape attempt, Mew and his 2 friends fail. Arson is shot in the thigh. Mew stops the bleeding and tells Arson to stay at the basement door, guarding it with his weapon. He set a bomb to detonate if the door is opened. Mew and Dylan have to return to the dormitory before the hostages escape. As the girls are about to reach the dormitory's hall, Dylan points his gun at them. Boren immediately steps forward to protect them. Boren slowly backs away as Dylan advances. Door. Dylan fires a shot towards the hostages, but luckily, Boren quickly raises Dylan's gun, causing the bullet to hit the dormitory ceiling. The hostages scream. Dozens of bullets are wasted, shattering glass and lamps in the room. Boren continues to hold onto Dylan's gun, preventing him from firing at the hostages behind him. Boren manages to push Dylan, causing him to fall on top of him. Boren grabs the sharp object, aiming it at Dylan's neck, but Mew shoots the tip of the sharp object, causing it to fall to the ground. Boren turns to look at Mew. Dylan pushes Boren, forcing him to face the wall. Dylan repeatedly kicks Boren in the stomach, retaliating for his earlier actions. He even punches Boren in the face until it's bruised and bloody. Mew walks towards the hostages who are crouching to protect themselves. His gaze falls on Gulf, who is sitting in the corner by the door, covering his ears and eyes. After beating Boren to a pulp, Dylan points his gun at Boren's forehead, preparing to pull the trigger. Suddenly, Mew snatches the gun from Dylan's hand. Twice. Dylan stops mid-sentence. They tricked us twice, he yells. Mew glares at Dylan. You're wasting our precious bullets. It's always emotional bastards like you who screw up missions. You need to stay calm in situations like this. If you keep this up, I don't need you anymore. Dylan takes a deep breath. Everyone, back to the cafeteria. Now, all the hostages return to the cafeteria after Dylan's command. Mew turns around and sees Golf's injured hand. I'll watch the cafeteria. You take Boren, lock him up in another room. He then follows the hostages back into the cafeteria. Boren lets out a frustrated sigh, clenching his fist. He reluctantly complies with Mew's order to take Boren to another room. Mew paces back and forth, his eyes scanning the hostages. He thinks to himself, he clearly ordered us to cooperate with the police. Dad must have made a deal with the police director to save our lives. He continues pacing. Then why are they trying to kill us? As Mew is about to continue walking, he notices Golf's hand, which is bleeding profusely, staining the floor. Dylan re-enters the dormitory and whispers to Mew, I laid Boren down in the next room. He's badly injured. I'll get the first aid kit. He then moves towards the first aid kit near the window, but Mew stops him. Mew says, looking at Golf, who keeps his head down. Golf lowers his head slowly. Follow me with the first aid kit, Mew says coldly. Golf immediately gets up, grabs the kit, and follows Mew out of the cafeteria. All the girls watch Golf's departure with scorn. They whisper, why is he taking him? I don't know. Dylan turns to the girl who spoke. Keep your head down. The girls quickly comply. Upon reaching the room where Arson is, Mew forcefully pulls Golf's arm, dragging him into the room. He then snatches the first aid kit from Golf's hand. Mew wants to treat Arson's wound. Golf, feeling his duty is done, tries to return to the cafeteria, but Mew stops him. Wait, Mew says, focusing on treating Arson's wound. Golf, not wanting to see Arson's serious injury, tries to pass Mew to leave the room, but Mew stops him again. I said, wait, Mew says, grabbing Golf's arm and pushing him back onto the chair in the room. He turns the chair around so that Golf can't see Arson's wound. I'm fine, Mew, Arson says as Mew treats his wound. No, you're a scoundrel, Mew replies, pouring medicine on Arson's gunshot wound. Arson tries to suppress his pain. Luckily, you didn't hit any arteries or veins, Mew says as he bandages Arson's wound. I can even withstand your torture, so this wound means nothing. After treating Arson's wound, Mew takes Golf back to the cafeteria. But suddenly, in the middle of their journey, Mew stops. He takes Golf to a chair next to the cafeteria table. Golf looks around, confused. His hand is already sore from being gripped by Mew. Mew pulls Golf's arm until he sits on the chair. Mew also sits in front of Golf. He takes the first aid kit from Golf's hand. Then he takes a bottle from the kit and reaches for Golf's wrist. Mew's grip is too rough, almost hitting Golf's wound. When Golf realizes Mew is touching his hand, he immediately pulls it away and glares at Mew. Mew sighs and reaches for Golf's wrist again. This needs to be treated, he says as he pours the medicine on the back of Golf's injured palm. The medicine stings. Golf continues to stare intently at Mew, who is bandaging his wound. Release everyone. Mew turns to Golf, but he simply turns back and bandages Golf's wound. If you feel even a little sorry for me, release them, please. Mew remains silent. Let them go, Golf says again. Mew finishes bandaging Golf's wound and gently rubs the bandage on the back of Golf's palm before placing it on his knee. Tomorrow morning, I'll ask a doctor to treat Arsen's wound. They will demand the release of the hostages. Mew pauses for a moment. I plan to release you. Only you. To repay your kindness to me these past few days. We'll be even then. Even. Come with me. I will make amends for my past mistakes. Gulf rolls his eyes, then stands up and leaves Mew to return to the cafeteria. He has no intention of trusting Mew at all. Mew lets out a sigh. When Gulf returns to the cafeteria, the girls immediately start gossiping about him, seeing his bandaged hand. Look at him. His hand is bandaged. What? Bandaged. He's right. The fugitive treated him. But why only treat him? Is the fugitive gay? Is he the lover of a fugitive? Gulf is silent. Somehow, hearing the girl's words makes his heart ache, especially when he sees Saint staring at him intently. Gulf immediately covers his wound with one hand and sits in a corner to avoid the girl's words. Shania looks sadly at Gulf. She can't help him or defend him in this situation. Mew. Dylan calls softly. Mew turns around. I contacted Mother Violet to send a team. Didn't you hear my order? I said don't. Mew says after hitting Dylan's stomach. We'll die if we keep following your stupid orders. Dylan argues. What? What else do you want? We've even found him. I don't want you to keep doing this. Dylan yells. Cancel the rescue team now. No, I will not cancel the rescue team from Mother Violet. You, Mew. Arsen interjects. Dylan and Mew turn to him. You're being too selfish this time. Do you want to kill those girls? They're still teenagers. He continues. Mew falls silent, hearing Arsen's words, which are true. Do whatever you want, but we have to get out of here quickly before the news about us spreads. Arsen says, I'll decide whether we should leave or not. I'm your leader. You're just a soft-hearted man from a powerful family. How dare you endanger my life for your selfishness? This would have gone smoothly if you hadn't come to the dorm. Dylan yells. Their conversation was so loud that the other hostages could hear the three vampires talking. Earth, starting to get angry, looks around and walks towards Gulf, slapping him hard on the shoulder. Hey, Gulf, do something. You and him must be close. Do something for us. What can he do? We were also tricked. He doesn't even know he's a fugitive, Saint says, lying. Really? Earth argues. Look what he did. I don't know won't be enough. You guys from the same room are accomplices. So, shut up. Accomplices? Listen, I'm also angry at Gulf. But it's not entirely his fault, Jehan says. Stop arguing. Mrs. Shania says, the police agents will help us get out. Suddenly, all the girls fall silent, hearing the commotion between Mew and Dylan. How are we going to get out of this dorm if there are so many police outside? Dylan says, still arguing with Mew. I know your intentions. You want to stay here because you want to see Gulf, right? You're stupid. Quickly kidnap him if you want him. Don't put me in danger because of your actions. I'm the leader. I'll take full responsibility. You won't die. We'll come back alive by any means. Responsible? Dylan retorts. You're a coward who let the humans trick us. How are you going to do it? Mew takes a step forward. Dylan, don't forget Mother Violet stopped me from killing you, so obey my orders. He says, then Mew exits the cafeteria, followed by Arsen. Now Mew is in the next room with Arsen. Mew. Arsen calls. Mother Violet wants to talk to you. He says as he hands the phone to Mew. Mew takes the phone. Yes, Mew Suppasit. Are you alright? Yes. What's up? Do manage to bring him here. If you don't come back soon, Mr. Lee will find you. Wait, I know you want to bring Golf with you. Bring him and come home quickly. Mother Violet ends the call unilaterally. Mew sighs deeply. Tell Golf to come here. Arsene immediately exits the room to fetch Golf. A few minutes later, Golf arrives in the room. Mew tells Arsene to wait outside the room and then locks the door. Golf tries to step forward to check the door, but Mew stops him first. Sit down. Golf continues to struggle to break free from Mew's grip on his arm. Damn it! Mew pushes Golf until he falls right onto the chair. Let's make a deal. Golf looks around, confused. You want me to release them, right? Golf nods. Come with me. Golf widens his eyes. What? I won't. Do you want to see your friends die? Mew says immediately. Golf's eyes well up. Please don't. I can't leave. Your child is in my hands. Slap. What? Golf says after slapping Mew's cheek. You're pressuring me again, Mew. Golf keeps hitting Mew's chest while his eyes are filled with tears. Mew just stands there, letting Golf hit him until Golf faints from exhaustion. Maybe Golf is too tired, especially since he's been trying to suppress his fear of the sound of gunfire. Mew gently strokes Golf's hair before carefully lifting him and laying him down on the sofa. Mew calls Arsene inside. Get me the medicine and tell Mother Violet I'm done. She can send the reinforcements. Okay, but is Golf alright? Mew glares sharply at Arsene. Alright, I'll report to Mother Violet immediately. Arsene quickly leaves the room as Mew's sharp gaze intensifies. Mew takes a pill from the medicine, crushes it, and pours it into a glass of water. He carefully holds Golf's shoulders to prevent him from lying down completely, drinks the water, and then transfers it through a kiss on Golf's lips. After finishing the water, Mew spits out the remaining liquid, as he doesn't want to be affected by the sleeping pill he gave Golf. Mew lays Golf back down on the sofa and covers him with his jacket. I've reported to Mother Violet. She be here at 10 p.m. with 200 troops and 125 helicopters. Arsene says it's 9 p.m. now. Secure the hostages, lock them in the cafeteria, and bring that girl here. Okay. Arsene obeys Mew's orders. Mew focuses on Golf again. He takes Golf's bandaged wrist and kisses it. After that, Mew leaves the room to help Arsene complete his orders. Locking the room behind him, the vampires lock the hostages in the cafeteria, leaving Bourne in a separate room. Mew carries Golf. Dylan carries a teenage girl, and Arsene leads the way to basement 2. 9:46 p.m. The three vampires arrive at the basement room. Arsene peeks outside and sees several police officers guarding the basement door. They can't leave the basement without Mother Violet's orders. Mew still holds Golf, covering his face with his jacket. He keeps checking his phone. At 9:55 p.m., Mother Violet informs him that the plane is about to arrive. And sure enough, 6 minutes later, they hear the sound of bombs and gunfire from outside the basement. They're sure it's Mother Violet's team. After 15 minutes of fighting, there's a knock on the basement door. Arsene cautiously peeks outside and sees two knocking. He immediately opens the door for him. Get in the helicopter quickly. The three vampires immediately run towards the helicopter, carrying Golf and the teenage girl. Mew runs behind, protecting his friends from the continuous gunfire. The forest behind the dormitory is ablaze. Once Arsene and Du have successfully entered the helicopter, only Dylan and Mew remain. Dylan keeps running, while Mew watches his surroundings. He sees Mother Violet's special forces surrounding him, but suddenly, one officer almost gets hit by a bullet. Mew quickly gives Golf to Du, protects the officer, and door, arc, Mew was shot in his right arm. The vampire forces saw Mew get shot, and instantly, the 200 vampires killed the police officers. Initially, they didn't intend to kill the police. They just wanted to protect themselves with shields because Mother Violet had forbidden them from killing the police. But when they saw Mew get shot, dozens of police officers were instantly killed by the vampire forces. Blood splattered everywhere on the ground and the trees. Mew was immediately carried into the helicopter, after which the vampire forces retreated and returned to their respective helicopters. Only Mew was shot. He tried to stay awake, and Arsene kept pressure on the wound in his arm to stop the bleeding. Hold on, Mew. You've completed your mission. You brought Gulf back, Arsene said anxiously. Finally, after 15 minutes, they reached their headquarters. Mew could no longer bear the pain and fainted after staring at Gulf's sleeping face for a long time. Arsene tried to talk to Mew and urge them to reach headquarters quickly. The atmosphere in the helicopter was tense. If Mew died, all the vampires would be in trouble. A few minutes later, the helicopter landed in a large yard. The officers who had been waiting for Mew immediately rushed to him and carried him into the house. To help Arsene walk, and other officers carried Gulf and the teenage girl. Mother Violet had prepared a room for Mew's surgery and to treat the injuries of the other vampires. Where's Gulf? Violet asked too. Gulf? He was taken to the room. Is he injured? No, only his hand was treated. You watch over Gulf until he wakes up. Okay, I'll do it, Arsene said, but your leg is still. It's nothing. I can still run, he replied. Alright, if anything happens, call too quickly. After getting permission from Violet, Arsene immediately ran to Gulf's room. It had been about 3 hours since the fugitives had entered the cafeteria. All the hostages were confused and tried to find a way to escape. When Miss Shania realized that the cafeteria door was locked, she looked for another way out until she suddenly heard the sound of the door being forced open from outside the cafeteria. Door, are you alright? Bourne said after successfully breaking down the cafeteria door. Follow me. Those thugs have run away. All the hostages followed Bourne out of the cafeteria and down to the lower floor. Finally, Bourne reached the front door of the dormitory. He slowly opened the door, raising both his hands. Sir, it's me. I have secured all the hostages, he shouted. The police officers guarding the front door immediately ran to help Bourne and the other hostages. An hour after the hostages were secured, they were taken to the police director's building. Have you seen Gulf? Saint asked, as he hadn't seen Gulf's face at all. No, wasn't he taken away by the fugitive? One of the students replied. Saint widened his eyes. What? So Gulf hasn't returned? Maybe just let him be taken away. He's the one who caused us trouble. Hearing the nonsense from the student, Saint chose to take out his phone and call Mr. Lee. From missed calls from Mr. Lee until finally the 5th call, Mr. Lee answered. Mister, it's me. Saint. Yes. Why, Saint? Is there any news about the fugitive who held the female students hostage at Valencrew Dormitory? No, why? Oh yeah. Did Gulf bring Kevin back? What? Kevin is also missing. Missing? What do you mean? Mister, where are you now? I'm abroad. What? So, Mr. entrusted Kevin to Mr. S. Men? Yes, because Gulf is missing. Gulf was taken away by Mew. I can't tell you everything over the phone. Can Mr. Lee come home quickly and look for Gulf and Kevin? Alright, Wait for me a few more days. This is crazy. Saint ruffled his hair, venting his frustration. Why? What happened? Jehan said suddenly. Gulf was taken away by that damn fugitive. What? Miss Shania said, suddenly appearing. That fugitive took Gulf away? Have you contacted Mr. Lee? Miss Shania said. I have. Mr. Lee is abroad. He'll be back in a few days. Hearing Saint's words, Miss Shania immediately went to the police to report Gulf's disappearance. After Boren's gunshot wound was treated, he returned to a meeting with the other military forces, and earlier, Boren also received news that Gulf had disappeared. All the police were focused on finding Gulf. We'll be dead if our master finds out Gulf is missing. Hessel said, Be quiet. He'll be here soon. Leonel said, I really still remember working as a police officer. I told you to be quiet. Leonel shouted, What happened behind the dormitory? Boren asked. There were 5 armed helicopter forces that killed all of our military personnel. There were 96 casualties. Leonel replied, Damn. Boren cursed. Then, didn't anyone see where that damn bastard went? No, we're dead. All the police officers who were now in the workroom became tense when their master had just arrived. You failed to save Gulf. Sorry, sir. I don't need your apology. He shouted. Sir Mile. Boren called. Mile. Their master is Mile. That's right. Mile the Wolf, who ordered the police to arrest Mew. But Gulf got caught up in it. Do you still remember when Mile last met Gulf in the garden? That's where all of Mile's plans began. At that time, Mile had tried to prevent Gulf from returning to the dormitory. But because of Gulf's strong determination, Mile failed to prevent him. From now on, your task is to find where Gulf is and arrest that damn bastard. But remember, this time the mission is to prioritize Gulf's safety. Yes, sir. But Boren interjected as Nani was about to leave the room. It's not just Gulf who is missing. Mile furrowed his brow. Who else? There's a 20-year-old teenage girl who was taken by Mew. Girl, who is she? It had been almost an hour since Arson had been watching over Gulf. But Gulf hadn't woken up yet. He kept staring at Gulf without stopping. He really wanted to wipe Gulf's forehead, but Arson still held back, remembering that Mew was still his friend. Arson smiled faintly several times as he looked at Gulf's sleeping face. This was the first time he could see Gulf sleeping so closely. Hey, Dylan said, leaning his shoulder against the door while looking at his hands between his elbows. Arson turned his head for a moment, then looked back at Gulf, ignoring Dylan. Feeling ignored, Dylan walked towards Arson. Still like Gulf? Yes, I sometimes feel sorry for you. You're not even acknowledged, but you still force yourself to be crooked. Isn't it better to find another girl who's more voluptuous? He continued. Arson ignored him? Damn, he muttered, feeling ignored. Violet told you. Why do you want to kill Gulf? Arson suddenly interjected in a heavy voice. Dylan was silent. Arson stood up and walked towards Dylan. Why did you want to kill Gulf at the dorm? You think I don't know what your real plan is? Now answer honestly. I don't know what you mean. Dylan was about to walk out, but Arson grabbed Dylan's arm first. Still pretending to be stupid? When Gulf was still in the dorm, you pointed a gun at Gulf's head. Dylan panicked. Why are you afraid I'll tell Mew? Sen, I really didn't have any intention to. This is the last time I'm saying this. Never bother Gulf again, or you'll face the consequences. He whispered, Then Arsene forcefully pulled Dylan out of the room. Then Arsene pushed Dylan's body and immediately left Dylan in front of the room. "Aish damn," he muttered, rubbing his arm that was sore from Arsene's grip earlier. "You don't know, do you, that Dylan intended to kill Gulf?" "I didn't tell you that part, just to be quick." "Why?" Stu shouted when he saw Arsene, who had just arrived. Arsene ignored him. He immediately sat in the dining chair near the other vampires. "Do you want to eat? Ahem, how is it? Are you happy you can take care of Gulf?" Arsene still ignored him. Noisy. "How is Mew?" "He's still in a coma. He's lost a lot of blood." "What percentage is his recovery rate?" Arsene's question made the other vampires stare. Some even choked. "Hey, why are you asking that?" Arsene drank his tea, then immediately left the dining room. "Where are you going again?" Arsene was silent. He immediately left, ignoring Du's question. Arsene now went to Violet's room. He knocked softly on the door until finally Violet told him to come in. Violet told him to sit in front of her desk. "What is it, Sen?" "Mew's condition. Can she wake up quickly?" Arsene answered. "Still too weak. She's lacking a lot of blood. There's not enough chance for her to survive." "The girl Mew brought, is she?" "Right," Violet said. "I'll take care of Win while Mew is still in a coma," he said as he walked out of Violet's office. Arsene's curiosity was finally satisfied. He returned to Gulf's room to keep him company. In the hushed, dimly lit room, only a crimson glow illuminated the dozens of photographs lining the walls of Miles' private space. He studied the photograph Boren had given him, a young girl adorned in a pale purple dress with long flowing hair. Miles tried to place her, a sense of familiarity tugging at his memory. Yet, when he thought of her name, it was different from the one he knew. "This is what the story looks like with the changes you requested. I changed the names as you asked. The sentence about Kanawut was unclear, so I removed it. Let me know if you want to make any other changes."